The villagers of Winton never swam in the lake. It sat at the edge of the forest like a sheet of glass, perfectly still, reflecting the sky with a chilling clarity, as if it wanted to remember everything that happened above it. On some nights, a faint shimmer would rise from its depths, and the old folks would whisper that the light came from souls that had wandered too close, lured into the cold, dark water. Hey little angels, don't forget to like, share and comment on this video. Darren had heard the stories his whole life, but he didn't believe them. He was 16, restless, reckless, and drawn to everything the world told him to stay away from. His father used to tell him, "The only monsters in this world are the ones we make inside our own heads," but his mother disagreed. She refused to even look toward the lake. Once, when she caught Darren skipping stones across its glassy surface, she slapped his hand. Her eyes filled with a terror he didn't understand, and made him swear he'd never go near it again. But after his father was lost at sea, drowning in a storm far from home, the lake began to call to Darren. It wasn't a voice, not at first. It was a silence that felt louder than any noise, a stillness that pulled at the edges of his grief. The call became a light one summer evening. Darren was walking home from the fields, the air thick and warm, when he saw it, a tiny glint far out on the water. It wasn't the moon, and it wasn't a star. It was smaller, deeper, and it pulsed with a faint, rhythmic glow. He blinked, rubbing his eyes, and it was gone. He thought he'd imagined it, but the next night, he saw it again, a steady, beckoning pulse from the heart of the lake. He went to his mother, his voice hesitant. "Have you ever seen a light in the lake?" She went pale, the color draining from her face as if he'd spoken of death itself. "Don't speak of that," she whispered, her voice tight. "Some things shine only to lure you in. They promise you what you've lost." Darren couldn't forget her words, but he couldn't forget the light either. He started dreaming of it, a soft, warm glow beneath the water, like candlelight, waiting just for him. By the fifth night, his curiosity had completely consumed his fear. It was a war inside him, and curiosity had won. He grabbed an old lantern, a coil of rope, and stripped down to his shorts. The moon hung high and heavy in the sky, casting long, skeletal shadows from the trees. The forest was so quiet that he could hear the frantic beat of his own heart. The lake looked endless, a black mirror reflecting the stars. The reflections trembled on the surface, looking like the eyes of creatures watching him from just below. He took a shaky breath, his voice a whisper against the silence, half to himself, half to the water. Just a quick look, then he stepped in. The lake was colder than he could have ever imagined. It wasn't just cold. It felt alive, sliding up his skin like 1,000 icy fingers. He waded out, the silty bottom squishing between his toes, until the ground abruptly fell away and he was treading water. The glow pulsed again, right below him, clearer now. It looked metallic, maybe gold, and it seemed so close, almost close enough to reach down and grab. He took a deep, shuddering breath, filling his lungs, and the world went silent, replaced by the rush of water pressing against his ears. The light swelled, growing larger and brighter until he could see it clearly. It was a lamp, ancient and ornate, covered in barnacles and half buried in the silt. It made no sense for something like this to be shining, but it was, pulsing faintly, as if a small heart was still beating inside. His lungs began to scream for air, a fire spreading through his chest. He reached out, his fingers closing around the cold, slick middle of the lamp, and kicked hard, trying to fight his way back to the surface. And that was when he heard it. A voice. It was soft, echoing not in his ears, but inside his own mind, as if the water itself was speaking. Make your wish, before you drown. His eyes widened in the dark. He twisted, searching for the source of the voice. Precious bubbles of air escaping from his mouth. The voice came again, clearer this time, almost gentle. Make your wish. The burning in his chest was unbearable. Panic, pure and absolute, surged through him. He was dying. Without thinking, desperate and terrified, Darren gasped the words out into the water, a silent scream of thought. Air. I wish for air. The lake went silent. The lamp in his hand paused once, a final, brilliant flash, and the voice whispered, as you wish. A horrifying cold flooded his lungs. But it wasn't air. It was water. It slid down his throat, filling his chest, seeping into his very veins. He choked, flailing for the surface, but the water no longer obeyed him. His limbs grew heavy, impossibly heavy, and the shimmering surface, the world of the living, seemed a million miles away. Through the deepening darkness, something moved, a shape made of ripples and currents, vast and vaguely human, its body formed entirely of water. It hovered before him, its face shifting and indistinct, its eyes like twin whirlpools. Its mouth moved without making a sound, but the words echoed in his skull. Breath enough for eternity. Darren tried to scream, but only a stream of bubbles escaped his mouth, rising to the surface like ghostly laughter. His body stilled, suspended in the cold, silent dark between one heartbeat and the next. Above him, the moon shimmered on the water, then blurred, then vanished altogether. The next morning, his mother found his lantern sitting on the shore. The rope he'd tied to a tree trailed into the water, where it ended, cut clean. They searched for him for 3 days. Men from the village dragged the lake with heavy hooks and nets, their faces grim. But they never found his body. All they found was a lamp. It was resting on the rocks by the shore, still wet, its inner light gone. The villagers, terrified, took the lamp and buried it deep in the forest, under a cairn of heavy stones. But at night, some swore they could hear the sound of bubbling near the center of the lake, and others said the moonlight seemed to linger longer on the water, as if it were waiting for someone to return. Years passed. The lake grew quiet again, its dark reputation hardening into legend, until another boy came. His name was Elias, the blacksmith's son. He was curious and bold, just as Darren had once been. One hot afternoon, his friends dared him to swim to the middle of the lake. He just laughed, stripped down to his trousers, and waded in. The water was colder than it looked, but he pushed on. Halfway across, just as he reached the center, he saw it, a faint glimmer below him. Golden, familiar. His heart pounded with a sudden, irresistible curiosity. He took a breath and dove, and when he surfaced, gasping, he was holding the lamp. Elias turned it over in his hands, brushing away the slime and mud. It seemed to hum, a soft vibration against his skin, like a distant heartbeat. And then a voice rose from the water, faint, distant, but unmistakable. Make your wish. He froze, treading water, his eyes darting across the empty surface. Who's there? He called out. In response, the ripples around him widened, and the entire lake began to glow with a soft, ethereal light. A face appeared just beneath the surface. A boy's face, pale, with hair that floated like dark seaweed, and eyes that were wide and calm and impossibly sad. It was Darren. Elias gasped, water splashing into his mouth. The voice came again, this time from everywhere at once. A chorus of whispers on the wind and in the water. Make your wish before you drown. Elias shook his head, his own panic rising. No, no, I'm not drowning. But he was. He could feel it. The water was rising higher around his chest, pulling him down gently, like a pair of soft hands from beneath. Fear, cold and sharp, struck him. He shouted, his voice cracking, I wish you'd let me go. The lake stilled. The face of the boy in the water smiled, a faint, heartbreakingly sad smile. As you wish. The next thing Elias knew, he was on the shore, coughing up lungfuls of water, the cold lamp lying in the grass beside him. He looked around wildly, the forest, the sky, the distant lights of the village. Everything was the same. Nothing had changed, but when he picked up the lamp again, he saw a reflection in its tarnished brass. It wasn't his own. It was Darren's. The boy in the lamp smiled faintly, and a whisper reached Elias's mind. You wished to be free. Now we both are. And then, the light inside the lamp, the faint hum, the cold life it held, flickered and died, for good. They say the lake changed that night. The next morning, a thick, golden mist hung over it. The surface rippled with a warm, inviting light, and for the first time in living memory, the birds returned. Herons and swallows dipped and flew across its surface, their calls echoing in the bright morning air. The villagers gathered at the shore, astonished. The lake no longer felt cold and menacing. It shone softly, as if dawn itself had fallen into its depths and decided to stay. Elias swore he saw two shapes walking beneath the surface, far down in the clear water, two boys, side by side, hand in hand, drifting deeper and deeper into the glow until they vanished into light. No one ever drowned in the lake again, and on still nights, when the moon is full, the water glimmers faintly, not with one light, but with two, like a pair of lanterns burning side by side. The lake wasn't cursed anymore. It was just remembered. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.